Connecting the community through gospel. The new 107.9 FM, W300EB, Macon, and WDDO 980 AM, Perry, Macon.
The views expressed on this program are not necessarily the views of the Glory 980 AM, the Glory Media Group, LLC, WDDO AM, its staff, management, or advertisers, but are the views and opinions of the participants of the broadcast.
It is now time for the live broadcast of the NAACP with Gwenette Westbrooks and Mr. Dumas.
And good evening and welcome to another segment of the NAACP Truth Show. I'm Willie Dumas, your host. Joining me today is our member, Ms. Bryant. Ms. Maria Bryant has joined us in the stead of President Westbrooks. And so we welcome her once again to the show because it's that time of the year where voting is one of our top priorities, to making sure that you're getting out to vote, that you know the candidates to vote for, that you understand your ballot and all the amendments and those kinds of things. Of course, we got runoff elections that are coming up. And so
started this morning at 8:30.
Absolutely. So we want to make sure that you're getting out to vote. And so we're going to be talking about voting today. I do want to send a shout out to the Atlanta Urban League, who is in town today, giving the state of Georgia, putting a finger on the pulse of Georgia and kind of getting suggestions on how we can improve all in our today. And we wish them travels as they make their way back to Atlanta this evening. And so we're going to jump right into it. What do our voters need to know about voting in this June election?
Hi, I'm Maria Bryant. I'm the Political Action Chair for the Macon NAACP. What we need to know is early voting started this morning at 8:30. We only have early voting 1 week, the 13th through the 17th, and we need for everybody to get out and early vote. Early voting is at only one location at the 2525 Pinona Avenue at the Macon Board of Elections. It's right across diagonal to Krispy Kreme, so you can't miss it. And there's tons of signs out in front of it. So please make sure you go over there and cast your vote. All those if you don't early vote, just remember you need to pull out your card or check your MVP status so you know exactly where you vote, because this year provisional ballots will only be given after 5 o'clock. So if you go to your precinct that's not your polling place, they're not going to let you vote because you won't be able to get a provisional ballot until after 5 o'clock. So what we want you to do this week, if you're not early voting, make sure you check your status, check the MVP page, and go in and look and see where your precinct is, and make sure you're at your precinct on June the 21st, which is Election Day. Polls are open from 7 to 7.
And this is particularly important for first-time voters to make sure that they know their place to go to vote, as well as people who may have been, on last week, I believe it was, we talked about the purging of the voting rolls. Yeah. And so if people haven't voted in the last couple of elections or in a while,
you've been purged from the system.
And so you don't want to be a victim of that.
Right.
And so you may, if you think that could be a concern for you, you may need to try to early vote. So you'll have time to address those.
But unfortunately, you won't be able to vote in this runoff election. So you'll need to register again so you will be able to vote. That's why it's important that we ask everybody to register, check your MVP status. Also, we need for people to make sure if you married or divorced, change your name, or whatever, you need to do a new form because it needs to coordinate with your driver's license. So, and whatever's on your driver's license is the polling place that you'll be assigned to. So that's why it's real important, because there are some people, there were some district changes. So just remember, if you didn't change your information and there's a district change, your district change, you may not be able to vote for the person that you want to vote for, especially when you're talking about looking at your senators and your representatives. If you're not in that district, you will not be able to vote for those people. So please check your new status. It's out there online. You can pull it up and look and see exactly where you are, so you'll know who you'll be able to vote for. Because people will call our office and say there's something wrong with my ballot. These people's name were not on there, and then we'll look it up and find out you're no longer in that district. So that's why you were not able to vote for that particular person.
Absolutely. And so, if the process is if it looks a little hairy or looks a little gray, that's a good indication that something possibly has changed
Right.
in their voting requirements.
And there are new voting laws out there. So make sure you, because of the changes in the voting laws, there are some things that are different. So we also want to remind people who did absentee ballots, make sure when you get your absentee ballot in, go ahead and complete it, and make sure you can fill out the form, because on there you need to put your birth date and your driver's license number, or else your ID number. Make sure you put that on there to fill that out and sign that properly, because that way, so you won't have a problem there. So you need to make sure, if you look on the back of there, there's a place for you to put your birthday, and then there's also a place to put your driver's license, or if you don't drive and you have an ID, you need to put that ID number on there. Okay.
Also, Ms. Bryant, have they collected any data as far as in the last voting cycle, as far as any particular hiccups that people were having when it came to voting?
We haven't heard from many. I'm quite sure there were some hiccups in some of the polling places, but they haven't really delved into it because of the fact that we have a runoff that's going on. So after the runoff, we'll probably have better numbers and we'll know exactly. But if there's a problem in your polling place now, you need to let us know, because so we can check on it to make sure that there's no issues. Because you, like I said, if you go to the wrong polling place before 5 o'clock, you're not going to be able to vote. You're going to have to, and they only do provisional ballots after 5 o'clock. So I know before you could get a provisional ballot anytime, but now provisional ballots are only after 5 o'clock. So we just need to make sure that we're doing what we're supposed to do.
And then that becomes a sort of a crunch time, because you only have a certain amount of time to get to the polls,
Right,
and so it's imperative that it's better if you know
Right,
where you're
right.
supposed to be,
Right.
because we don't want people have to go from one side of the town,
Which you may wind up having to go to the other side of town. But also just remember, there's absolutely no voting at the Board of Election on June the 21st. There's no voting on Monday or Tuesday at the Board of Elections. So don't think, if you forget, like, oh, I'll just run by there. You can't. They're going to send you to where your polling place is. So it's best that if you go ahead, check your status now so you'll know where you're supposed to vote.
because that was one of the things we kind of observed in this past election, because a lot of times we're out watching the polls,
Right,
and I know
right.
you do a lot of that, and we noticed that people were showing up.
Yeah, I sat outside of the Board of Elections office just to see how many people would show up. And I did it about 5 o'clock. And I was thinking, I know I sat there and watched about 30 cars come to.
Wow.
And I'm thinking, okay, now you're going in, they're going to give you a sheet. Now you got to get to your polling place in time enough for you to vote.
Wow.
But cars were just streaming in. And I'm thinking, it's election day. There's never any voting at the Board of Election on election day. So a lot of people think because you can early vote there, you can vote there on election day. No. So please go to your polling place, because you want your vote to count. You want to be able to vote. Because,
Absolutely.
right now it's hard. Some people are like, I don't know, I'm not going to vote. But if you go to your polling place, go and vote. And make sure when you go, there are sample ballots. Make sure when you vote the entire ticket. Don't just go in and vote for the top person, because everybody needs to vote. So please make sure there are sample ballots. We have sample ballots out there, so you'll know because there's not that many people on there, so it won't take you long to go in there and vote this time. I think there's 7 many offices on there on that sheet, Mr. Dumas.
Let's see.
I think
1,
there's
2, 3, 4, 5.
So it's not but 5 races on there, and these are runoffs. These are runoffs. So please, and if you supported this person beforehand in the election in May, please make sure you go back and support that person again for the runoff. But we're encouraging everybody to please go out and vote. Exercise your right to vote. There are people that fought, died, and struggled in order for you to have the right to vote. So please go out and vote.
And another good practice is to learn some information about the candidates.
Right.
You know, it's very important to know what they're going to be doing for you.
Because we always say research.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And don't just take a chance, say, eeny, meeny, miny, mo, or
Right.
I'll vote for the first name I see. You know, the top person be the person. Because
that's probably the incumbent.
Right.
So,
exactly.
You know, and that may not be the person that you want to vote for. So you need to do some research, you know, get among yourselves, talk to friends, talk to people, and it's out there. And I know everybody Googles, everybody get online and you Google everything else. Go online and Google these candidates so you'll know who you're voting for, so you know what they look like. And also on Google, it will give you some information. It'll give you what they plan to do. So you want to find out as much as you can about your candidates beforehand. So when you get ready to vote, then you'll feel positive when you go in there voting for the right person.
And we do know the importance of this runoff election, but also for individuals who have maybe missed out, didn't vote, we still need their vote in November.
Yeah. Well, you can also still vote in the runoff.
Oh, they can?
Yeah,
okay.
If they didn't vote. As long as they was registered. If they was registered, they
right.
can.
Okay.
But if you were not registered, you can't. You got to wait till November. But
right.
if you were registered in there, you're able to vote.
And so that's kind of what we were looking at. I think somebody put in the chat, voting is a sacred trust. Be an educated voter.
Right.
And yes, we need to, as we mentioned earlier, study those candidates, kind of get a feel of who you're voting for, what they represent, and you know, those types of things, so that you can make a conscious decision, an educated decision on your vote.
Because your vote is your voice.
Absolutely.
So if you don't vote, why are you complaining? Because you're not part. So you got to be a part of the systems. You really got to go out and vote, and you know, let your choices, let it be known. We're not saying everybody that you vote for may get elected because there's running to get somebody, but you need to go out and have a choice. Make your voice. Let your voice be heard through your voting, please.
And you know, most of our voters know the importance of what the election was. You know, past election, and how important things were, and how Georgia became blue.
Right.
And so it's that same kind of energy this time around.
Right.
You got to have that same vigor, that same energy, and we got to have those same numbers of turnout in order to keep things the way that, you know, the voter thinks it ought to be. And so they got to have the same enthusiasm, the same energy.
Right. When you go out and vote, what you're doing is you're voting, researching, you're voting for people that's serving your best interests. You know, that's why you don't want to just go in there and just check off and just, oh, okay, I don't know who this is, I'll just vote. Or else just vote for a couple of people and leave the rest of it blank. We need for you to go out and vote.
And also for particular residents of Macon Bibb, there's some important things that are happening. And I think we had a guest on last week's show talking about some of the things that are being implemented, particularly through the water board.
Right.
And it seems that there will be some rates that will come from what they call storm water.
Yeah.
And there's been some discussion as to how that's going to affect individuals and how it's going to affect businesses. And so if you have that concern, then you need to vote for a candidate that's going to address those concerns for the constituents and for the voters. And so that's why it's important for the voter to find out where individuals stand, because we're talking about the top position,
Right.
particularly with
Correct.
the Water Authority.
Right.
That particular individual will be part of the decision-making process as it relates to things of that nature.
Correct.
And so that just shows us the importance of local voting,
Right.
on the local level, because everybody, is on tight budget
Right.
these days.
Right.
Gas
Right.
prices being increased, mortgages going up, renting rate, the rate for renting going up. And so, if these are concerns that you have, make sure you're voting for people that's going to address a lot of those issues,
Right.
for the local voter.
And we do have a caller someone that wrote in the chat that young people must get excited and about voting. So we need for our young people to get out and vote also. Also, someone wrote in that check in with those that who are about you, who know about your best interests and in politics, and they can help you be informed and educated when it comes to your vote. So we need for people to do that also.
Right. The different rallies that these candidates have, attend some rallies.
Right.
Get some concrete information, ask some hard questions for those candidates, and it makes for a greater impact as it relates to voting and how we can vote.
And in November, coming for the November election, there should be a lot of political forums so when those political forums are held, you need to try to get out. And then a lot of times you can see the candidates, they'll be able to ask them some questions. So what you need to do is goes to those political forums, and that way you can educate yourself and you can understand and know what they're talking about. Because a lot of times, all we hear are commercials, or we don't go, we get our cards. But, try to attend some of the political forums. And a lot of the forums are done online. So you don't have to show up at the polling place. You don't have to show up at the forum, if you're still kind of leery about going out among people. You can just go, check it online, because I caught a couple of the political forums online. So they're out there and they're available. Just check, because a lot of times they're on Zoom and if they're on Zoom, they're on Facebook. And if you're on Facebook, you should be able to pull them up with no problem.
Absolutely. And these are, some important runoffs here.
Right.
I just want to read some of the positions that are up for a runoff in the election. Lieutenant Governor, that's a very important position, of course. And Secretary of State. We know the importance of that position from the previous elections and the things that are involved in that office. And so these are important positions that they are running for. Also, for the Commissioner of Insurance. I know all of us are affected by insurance one way or another. Your cars, your homes, and everything else. So these are important positions there. Also, for the Commissioner of Labor. We always talk about job markets, employment, unemployment. And so these are the types of things that impact families, on a daily basis, daily and weekly basis. And so it's very important they get out. And then you're looking at the Water Authority, good, clean water, making sure that continues, making sure we're not overcharged, when you get your water bill, particularly during the summer, because we know water consumption increases during that time. And so see what those candidates are speaking about, increases or decreases in the amount that the consumer is paying as it relates to water. So
and you still have time to check these candidates out.
Absolutely.
You can go online, like I said, you can Google them. So you can go online and still have a chance to check these candidates out if you're still not sure who you want to vote for. So I suggest you do that.
Absolutely. I'm chuckling a little bit because I'm looking in the comment section here, and a lot of what's being said in there we can't talk about, but
Remember,
it
the
shows
NAACP is nonpartisan.
right.
What we're doing, what we're encouraging people to do is go out and vote. So you
Absolutely,
vote your conviction and you vote the candidate that you like. But
absolutely.
we can't tell you who to vote for because we're nonpartisan.
But
But we can encourage you to go out and vote.
right, and we also look at candidates as well, and we see what they're offering to the people,
Right,
and the different issues they support, and so we support issues and those kinds
right,
of things. So, but exercise that right.
right.
There's so many rights that we're now losing,
We're losing a lot of rights
and
because people are not voting because they're
absolutely,
changing things, and uh, we're not voting for them. And then also, if there's any issues, any amendments come up on the November election, you need to, check on those. Don't just, a lot of times people are like, oh, I didn't know anything about these amendments. So they just skip over them. Those
wow,
amendments are very important. That's why we get stuck with some things that we do because people don't read them. So if you're not sure, that's when you need to get with somebody that you are not sure with. Now, we do encourage people on amendments, but
right,
we do not encourage people on candidates. So,
absolutely,
we research those amendments to make sure it's the best thing for us.
absolutely. And so, be that educated voter.
Mhm.
Be that person who's going to exercise all your given God-given rights, and voting is one of those. Who knows? Every other right is being attacked these days, and there's a possibility. Who knows
Right,
that could be in jeopardy as well. So
right,
we need to exercise our right to vote. Many people died, that we're able to do that,
right,
and
right.
so our obligation,
Hmm.
you know, to get out and to exercise the right to vote. And so we're hoping for. We're always looking for good
Yeah,
turnouts.
we're hoping for a good turnout this time. Don't let people, everybody said nobody's coming back for a runoff. Let's fool everybody. Let's everybody turn out and, let's just surround that building and get there to vote. And just remember now, it's hot outside. So when you all go vote and you may have to stand in line, take you some water.
Absolutely,
Take you some cool water so you won't have to stand out and because uh, our space is not covered, so you would be standing out in the sun. So
absolutely.
make sure you have you some water when you go and vote. But our main concern is to make sure people vote, 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 vote your conviction.
Right, and
Yeah.
prepare.
Hmm.
Just what you're gonna do. You know what you're up against. So we know that a lot of times we have long lines and those kind of things. Just prepare for that when you go to vote. You mentioned making sure they've got water.
Hmm.
If you're diabetic, take you a little snack or
Yeah,
something. It may go a little longer than you anticipate,
right. Because
and
since
so
there's only one location,
right,
you may
the
wind up in
numbers,
a long line.
right, those numbers
Yeah.
may increase, at those particular precincts, and
Right,
so
right.
that's a good idea
Especially
to
this week during early voting, you need to, because it's supposed to be hot every day. So, if it's going to be
yes,
hot, you need to take you some water. Like you said, if you're diabetic, take your snack, have you something so you won't, we don't want people passing out. We want you to be able to vote.
absolutely.
Hmm.
And so also, we talked about voting. We've talked about the runoff, people getting out to vote. I also want to talk a little bit about some of the things that are going on around here in the city.
Right, right.
This past week, there were quite a few heightened events that had taken place in our community. And I just want to bring some awareness to the fact that we now, as security, we got to be security minded people.
Right, right, right.
I'm sure you heard about the potential incident in Warner Robins at one of the churches where they were thinking that someone was casing the church
Yes,
and
yes.
for possible uh, shooting or doing harm to individuals. We're living in a different day
Correct.
and at a different time, and we've got to be more vigilant.
Right, right.
When we're out here in the community, when we're out, in the streets, and even in some of what we would term as comfort zones, which is in our our sanctuary.
Right, right,
And so I think everybody has to now take a second glance at how they conduct security within their sanctuaries. And we just want to make sure that we have a safe environment,
right,
that
right,
we can operate through.
right, right.
We also see an increase in violent gun behavior.
Correct.
There were several shootings. I think
This weekend.
this past weekend, several
Right.
shootings, and they also at a certain establishment, I think they got a notice as being a nuisance for the number of shootings that had taken place at this particular establishment.
Right.
And so this is where we are, in this community, and we've got to really address a lot of these issues. We got to hold our elected officials' feet to the fire
Correct.
to do some things to help deter some of these things. So because some of it can be avoided if the right measures are put in place. And so these are the kind of things we think about even during election time.
Correct.
People that's going to see the need for better security and better implementation of safety throughout the community. And because it affects everyone.
It does. It does. It does. So,
Affects everyone.
we need to be safe wherever we are. And fellowship had a wonderful
Plan in place.
class last week on about safety in the churches. So
Wow.
it was excellent.
Wow. So did you get to attend or?
I did. I attended, and it was very good. I mean, they gave you a lot of valuable information on what we need to do to stay safe in our churches, because people don't respect the church like they used to. But they gave you a lot of measures of different things, just plain simple thing. And the biggest thing is to be vigilant when you go to church. Look and see what's around, see if people are sitting in cars in the parking lot, see if people coming in, especially if you have strangers. But we just need to be careful, because we need to have we just need to be vigilant, because there's a lot of things that's going on. And people think just because it's the church, but there are a lot of people out there who it doesn't matter.
They're willing to
Yeah,
take
right.
that.
If
those
they go
measures.
shoot up the schools, they'll shoot up the church. So what we need to do is just be very, very careful when we at our churches. Just be vigilant. Check around. Look around when people in the parking lot. Make sure somebody's checking. Make sure they're out there checking.
And particularly with the new gun laws,
Yeah.
With constitutional carry, it makes it a little difficult to identify many times who the bad guys are that have guns, because anyone can carry a firearm without a license unless you're a felon.
Right.
And unless somebody tells you
they're
a felon, you don't really have that information at your disposal.
Correct.
And so we are advocates of safety and security for our community. And so we hope that you're just as vigilant.
Right.
We've run out of time, but we certainly hope that each of you will go out and exercise your right to vote and take the time to do early voting if you can. And
8:30. 8:30 to 5:30.
8:30 to 5:30.
June the 3rd, this week only.
Absolutely.
And the election is Tuesday, June 21st, 7 to 7 at your particular polling places.
Thank you for joining us. We'll catch you on next week. Hope you'll tune in to see us.
Okay. Thank you.
Take care.
All right.
You have been listening to the live broadcast of the NAACP with Gwenette Westbrooks and Mr. Dumas. Come join us next Monday at 4 o'clock p.m. on 980 WDDO.
The views expressed on this program are not necessarily the views of the Glory 980 AM, the Glory Media Group, LLC, WDDO AM, its staff, management, or advertisers, but are the views and opinions of the participant